a very well-known self-defense expert. He's been in the world of pop. He's done the lot. And the interesting thing with the book is all of these things are covered. And what comes out of it really is that so much in your life was caused by certain watersheds that you reached. I mean, for example, Joe Cocker was a pivotal point in your life, wasn't he?
In particular, I think that the reason I got the work was that the fact he was busted for a small amount of marijuana in Adelaide in late 1972. And, of course, the Rolling Stones were coming early 73, and Mick Jagger said to his tour manager, well, we ain't going down there because if they gave Joe deportation for a little bit of marijuana, they'll lock us up for triple life. So then I spoke to Paul Dainty, who said it's very important that we get the Stones in and out without any kerfuffle. And he said, you've got a very good background, you've done all the major rock concerts, and you've been working the club scene for many years. And you come highly recommended, because he was just arriving in Australia at that time. I think he was about 26 years of age when Paul Dainty first arrived, and that was his first big band coming in. And he said, if you can pull this off, there'll be work in the future. And he was fantastic. I did personal bodyguard and security work for Paul Dainty for 15 years after the Rolling Stones, and it took me around the world with the biggest celebrities on the planet. Yeah.
Do you know, Bob, when you were doing the regular spot on Good Morning Australia, we used to get terrific reaction because you were pretty close to, oh, look at Mother there. You were pretty close to being one of the earliest innovators in that particular area of self-defence, certainly in television, and promoting the fact that women can look after themselves. It wasn't only for women, it was for men too. Yes. So you were a pioneer, weren't you?
I was surprised it didn't wane at all. I mean, as we went on week by week with you, it got more and more popular and more male coming into it. Yep. You said one morning I had the best job in Australia when I wound up on a double bed, because a lot of women complained that we were standing up with other guys, like I was bringing kickboxers and things in.
Sure.
And as well as working with Michelle, but a lot of male came in and said, how about we see something in bed? And I said to you, that might be a great idea to get a bed on the set. What do you think?
And you went for it.
Then I wound up with the best job in Australia. Yeah. In bed every week with Michelle Downs for 6 minutes.
You know something, Bob, though, you've had many jobs which have been perhaps the best jobs in Australia. The famous people that you've mentioned already, the Rolling Stones, and here's a shot of you with the Stones. What were they like?
Fantastic. Yeah, it was in there just at the end of their wild days, but they were still toning down before Mick became a complete businessman. That was the year 1973. For 2 years prior to that, he'd been suing his accountancy firm in New York for a $23 million lawsuit.
And I think also his previous management, wasn't he?
Yes, that's what it was, yes. And just prior to coming to Australia, he'd settled for $2 million because he couldn't get the $23 million. So I was on the first tour where he'd converted to being an astute businessman. He was checking every red cent. Yeah. Right down to cab fares having to be documented. Whereas prior to that, it was spend, and also the accountants and the management was spend, and there was nothing left.
Yeah. So, by the way, there's Bob there. That's Bob there.
That's at Kooyong in Melbourne, Bert, Kooyong tennis courts. Right. So a lot of people might relate to that.
And they're still going.
Older viewers this morning will relate to that.
Well, they're still going. That's the amazing thing,
of course,
and making great music. Sure. And so are you, Bob. I suppose the important thing in your career is that you've always been able to adapt. And that's pretty important, I think, in any job. But can I just borrow your brains for a second? All of the kerfuffle in recent times about crowd control, particularly at big rock concerts and so forth, and the unfortunate deaths that have occurred, it seems to me that in years gone by, when you were starting out, certainly, that sort of thing wasn't happening. We had young kids fainting in the whole deal, but now it really is becoming a huge worry. Is it the fault of the people who are doing the security? Is it the fault of the promoters? Is it the fault of the bands who really, perhaps more so than the Beatles and the Stones, go after those kids and get them at such a level that they don't even know what they're doing?
Well, there's one word really explains the problem that we never had around in our days. It's drugs. And we've got 1,000 kids committing suicide around the planet Earth today every 24 hours, and 86% of that's related to heavy drug taking. And my book is an anti-drug book, by the way, because I've never done any form of drugs in my whole life. And the book is chasing what I call the Black Dragon, the guy that deals in drugs. And the Black Dragon in my books is heroin, and I have a vengeance to sort of attack it wherever I can. Because I've lost a lot of good friends. I lost a very good kickboxer just 2 years ago that was training really hard, and he got involved in heroin and was dead within 12 months. So that drugs is the one word that makes it worse. The training was a good idea, and I think it'll prove out in the long run, this idea of having, because I helped Inspector Stephen Frost, it was at the time, about 12, 15 years ago. He rang me and said, I've been given the job by the government to legislate bouncers, and I have no idea what a bouncer is, because I'm the Inspector of Police, you know, a senior inspector. So I worked with him and some other people for about 12 months, 2 years, putting the legislation together. And my big argument was that they said, if you've got any priors for 10 years of any description, you can't work in the security industry. And I said, what about all these guys that have just minor assault charges that are now 10 years older, or 6 or 7 years older, married with 2 kids, and because it's an occupational hazard, assault charges. I had the same experience myself, and I wasn't convicted, but I had the same experience of landing in court. several times. Because if you do that job and you're trying to control the piece at 3 o'clock in the morning, there's thousands of people who sort of want to take you on, and you get in those situations.
Ever had a real belting? Has anybody ever won?
No, I've been very lucky. And in the book there's a couple of good yarns with Highway 61 in Auckland and the Mongrels. Lovely choice of a name, gang, down in Christchurch and Wellington.
What do they do?
Well, I spoil the story of the book, but I had to go into the crowd and get one of them, and there was 22,000 people there with a David Bowie all-white show, and there was a bike in front of the stage really upsetting David Bowie. So Paul Dainty said, we need you to go into the centre of the arena and get this mongrel, the bike gang member. And I said, what about the 120 fence security? What about the 50 in front of the stage? What about... I'm just the one bodyguard, you know? Yeah. Anyway, I had to go into the crowd and get this guy out, and I thought if I can just get him from the crowd and get him over the pit fence, which is in front of the stage, where we have a little safety area for girls that faint and exhaustion and things, if I can just get him over that fence, I'll be right. So I ran at him from the crowd, from behind, picked him up and kept him going, cleared the fence beautifully with his 20 mates trying to get me as I went through them all with their colours on the back. But as I get over the fence, I get white shirts and bow ties kicking me. So what happens is I've got 20 guys in the pit crew that are also mongrels that have taken their colours off, and I've got their boss. So I'm getting kicked from all angles.
But interesting thing is my brother holds no grudge. He said it was lovely, lovely meeting you. I tell you, it's lovely having you back on the show. Congratulations on the book. I've always thought the life of Bob Jones has been a fascinating one because I've been part of it in terms of radio and television for a great many years now. This is the culmination. There's much more to come for Bob, but in the meantime, this is the history of a fascinating life. And it's been great talking to you, Bob.
Thanks for the wonderful things you said about it this morning.
I wish you all the best. Bob Jones. Now on GMA.